Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm here in the studio today with Seth. Seth, welcome back.
Thanks, Roy.
Yeah, so for everyone who hasn't watched our last few episodes, could you introduce yourself?
Yep, Seth Larson, president of Resilient Roofing. Company was started in 1967. I did not start it in 1967. I took over in 2018, and that's about it. Big background in construction and home services. We can talk about that if we want, but
Oh yeah, yeah, plenty of experience there. So what we're talking about today is we recently had one of our roofing consultants go out on an appointment where there was so much damage to the roof that we actually weren't able to help them, and so we wanted to share today how basically to avoid that whole situation so that you don't get to that point. So the big problem that we ran into was that there was the roof had been neglected for so long that the structure itself was physically collapsing. So first, like, it wasn't safe for our guys to get on the roof, so they weren't even able to do a full inspection. And then even if they were able to, there's really nothing that any normal roofing company is going to do then, because like the beams in the house were physically, like, they were so rotted that like the roof itself was sagging. And hopefully I'll remember to throw up some pictures into the recording of it because they're pretty gnarly. Anyway, so it had been, I mean, obviously probably like 40, 50 years or so since the roof was redone. Probably hadn't ever been redone since the house was built, I would guess. And obviously just no maintenance done for the entire time. So Seth, could you talk for a minute about like how just to avoid that situation?
yeah, I was thinking about this, and to start with, I think the best explanation is what is a leak. It means different things to different people. And what I mean is you have a lot of layers to a home. Forget the roof, but to a home. And right now we're in an office building, but you have the ceiling, then you have the attic, then you have the roof structure framing, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Then in most cases you have plywood, and then you have the roofing material on top of that. So there's multiple layers. And then the roof, we could talk about forever, but I won't. I'll keep it simple. Has multiple layers to it too. So the point is, as soon as the roof leaks and it gets somewhere, water below the roof surface, that's a leak, right? Well, to your point, this particular home, and we've seen others, like it, but this one was real bad, leaked obviously past the roof into the structure, but then it leaked there for so long and never dried out properly that it dry rot is that word, water damage. It just rotted out the actual structure itself. Normally, people call us because they notice water in different places, and then we jump into action. And there could be a little bit of damage on, let's say, plywood, so it's roof and then plywood. That's most common,
Yeah, that's pretty standard. We see that on a lot of jobs.
Yeah, and our guys are more than capable of doing that, really easy. Sometimes fascia board we can change out. All that's super simple. In this one, and in others like it, they just waited so long that it rotted out the plywood. And that's why you said the guys were afraid of falling through, because the plywood, all the plywood does really is just span across the framing members to give you a little bit of pad to stand on. Well, anyway, that was wiped out in most places. Then it rotted through that into, there's different ways to build a home. There's beams, like you were saying. Some more modern, let's say from the 80s, 90s and beyond, is trusses. In a flat roof, you have floor joists or ceiling joists, rafters. They're different terms, but the point is, if those rot out, now you're getting into the actual structural integrity of the home. So that's spans from, let's say, outside wall to outside wall in most cases. That's holding the whole load of not only the roof system, but the roofing material, that kind of thing. So as soon as that gets damaged, we can replace one or two.
Yeah, but if it's the whole thing,
it's just above our pay grade. We're really good at the roofing, which has some framing involved, but this particular roof really needed to have the whole roof. This sounds dramatic. The whole roof structure torn out. So forget the roofing, the top layer. All that obviously needed to go, but the actual structure itself needed to be torn off. That goes into a whole nother can of worms. And I'll explain why, but you need permits for that. You need an engineer. You have to have plans. You really need to do it the right way, because if you just hire some guy on the weekend or some roofer that thinks they can do it, they're not just repairing the structure anymore. They're actually reframing it. So in order to change it out, you have to remove the old stuff. Well, now once you've removed the old stuff, you have these outside walls of your house that are just running wild. Nothing's holding them together. You also, depending on the severity, like this one, you're technically taking off not only the roof, but the ceiling of the home also. So electrical and plumbing that's running through there and HVAC, it's a whole remodel. I mean, it's all going to be a whole new top of the house. So once it gets that dramatic, we are mature enough in business to not try to be everything to everybody, if that makes sense. We just need to stick to what we're good at. And in that one, it needs so much work that you really need a general contract, a construction company that can handle not just the roof. Heck, we can do the roof once they're done with all the structural stuff, but they need someone that has plans, engineering, permits, really a demolition crew, then a framing crew, and then the roofing comes at the very end. It was that bad.
Yeah. So you're basically just rebuilding the entire top of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like
whole new structure up on top.
And I mean, depending on how bad it is, maybe you have to go in and replace some of the walls too. I wouldn't be surprised.
See, that's a good point. We didn't dive into inspecting that. Once we saw how bad it was, we kind of just took a step back and told the client. But you're right. Yeah, it could be even worse than the top part.
Yeah. So obviously horror story, right? No, nobody wants to hear that. But obviously there are ways to prevent that, because most of the people that we work with, their roof is nowhere near that bad. Like the structure is usually fine. Like maybe you have to replace plywood. That's common. Maybe you have to replace a couple of the trusses or whatever. But it isn't like to that level where it's about to collapse if we walk on it. So how do you stop it from getting to that point?
No, it's a good question. I guess if you kind of run all the way to the other end of deferred maintenance, everyone's seen like that little shack, in the woods, either on a movie or in real life, that's just completely fallen in on itself. That's Mother Nature. Just, something sitting out there that long, it's just going to get eaten up by the elements, rain, wind, snow, depending on the part of the town you're in. It's just going to eat it up. So everything ends up collapsing over time. That's dramatic.
Entropy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Dust to dust. So anyway, that's the extreme dramatic example. Well, we live in a first world country and we don't have that extremes except for this one. That's why that one kind of shook our whole team up so bad. It's like, holy cow, how did they leave this? And we don't know the story. We didn't spend too much time talking about it. You didn't want to give the client a hard time either. Who knows? They could have just inherited the home. It could have been abandoned for this long. It could have been, maybe they just bought it and it was like, who knows? We don't want to judge. But the point is, if you, as soon as you notice water, then get help. And it could be a plumbing leak. We just went to one the other day. They had a leak in the ceiling. We could not find anything wrong with the roof. We were just scratching our heads, finally went into the attic and it was a plumbing leak. It's like, oh, good. Okay, your roof's fine. But anyway, people who do a walk around, it doesn't need to be formal, but just as you're taking the trash out, look around, and as you're putting away decorations, let's say over the holidays, look up at the ceiling, that kind of stuff. Just nothing formal, but just take notice of stains, of water leaks. The other thing, speaking of that, kind of like that analogy we were using earlier of the different layers. You have the roof, then the plywood, then the structure, then the attic, then the ceiling. In between the ceiling and the attic, there's usually insulation. That's 6-7 layers that water leaking from the roof needs to go through before you even notice it.
Right.
So sometimes we've even seen the drywall on the ceiling hold water, and the paint was so good that it didn't even come through the paint. So there's even another layer. The point is, as soon as you see a leak, let's say in your ceiling, that's the most common place to see it. That means it's been leaking for a long time. That wasn't just a little short leak. That's took some time to get in, And then usually if it starts raining, let's say in the middle of the night, you won't notice it for a day or two, sometimes depending on the amount of rain, because it takes so long for that water to get through and finally show its stain. So point is, as soon as you see the first sign of any kind of leak, doesn't mean to replace your whole roof. I mean, most of our appointments and work that we do are just repairs. You can still just repair it, just take care of that, and then so that it doesn't cause more and more layers of that damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like we always say, it's not going to repair itself. Exactly. That's like something that we see is like sometimes this happened last year when it was raining super hard, but like there would be people who had noticed a leak like a year ago, and then it hadn't been raining, so they just weren't thinking about it. And then all of a sudden it rains really hard for like a week straight, and then the leak's a lot bigger. And of course it is because, once water starts coming in, there's no way to stop it except for actually going up and fixing the problem. But I think us being in San Diego, it doesn't rain a whole lot. There are a lot of people who just kind of wishful thinking.
Yeah.
It's like if I don't think about it, it might go away or it might not get worse or whatever. But yeah, it's really important to get that work done.
No, and then there's, let's say, different parts of the country, it rains so much that you hardly have any days that you can physically redo the roof. We have the opposite. Right. So they get tested all the time. Whereas down here, we've gone 9 months, 4 months, 8 months. That's not a big deal to us to not rain for that long. And then to your point, it reminds me of this little old lady, so nice. This is years ago. We saw her during a rainy season, and she's like, never mind. I'm not gonna deal with it. Well, then a year later, we went back out there, and I remember she said that exact. I just I don't know. As she was saying it, she realized that it didn't make any sense. She's like, I just thought it was going to take care of itself, and I'm like, well, it's not really how. Right. She went on to talk about how she kind of thought, maybe debris or something will like clog it up. And I'm like, it's not like a drain, like clogging up a drain. I'm like, well, it's not really like that because, like you said, the hole ends up just opening up and just getting bigger, over time.
Yeah.
Without, and sometimes that little hole can just be patched up. Like I say, it doesn't always mean I need a brand new roof. No one's excited. Very few people are excited to call our company or a company like ours. But more often than not, that was the positive review we just got this weekend. They told us we didn't need them. That our problem wasn't a roof problem. Everything was fine. So not all the time are we going to say, oh, you need a whole brand new roof. That's not true.
Yeah. And like, especially if you get to it quickly. And that's the thing. Like if a leak's been going for like 5 years, then chances are the damage has gotten a lot worse. Yeah. But if you get on top of it as soon as you see that there's something wrong, then yeah, chances are we can repair it, especially if the roof is like relatively new. New in terms of like how's like it could be 20 years old. We do a lot of repairs on roofs like around that age.
Well, we've been around long enough. We've heard the stories and have had clients that, let's say, moved or got another house or what the analogy I've heard quite often is, hey, if I need to do a roof and let's say it's $20,000, it's going to be $20,000 next year. It's going to be $20,000 the year after. Why don't I? So they look at it as, let me save $20,000 by not doing a roof. And it's not saving, it's deferring. But there's sort of two problems with that. One is that $20,000 with inflation, and it's not going to be $20,000 next year. It'll be more. But then worse than that is everything we've been talking about today, which is wood damage.
Yeah.
If it has leaks. If it doesn't have leaks, then this part doesn't apply. But if it does have a leak, and let's say there's going to be $200 worth of wood damage, I'm making that up. That's a couple sheets of plywood or something. The year after, it might need 3 sheets of plywood or 4. Well, the damage that water causes to wood really exponentially shoots up over time. If we were drawing a chart right now, it wouldn't just kind of go up slow. It really shoots up. So if you wait that extra year, it could completely open up into 10 sheets of plywood or 20 sheets of plywood, all your fascia, all that kind of stuff. It just gets worse. Whereas if I would have just done that roof years ago when I first kind of had a couple leaks and needed it, it would have saved so much money for the family. So anyway,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's that's that no fun sort of balancing to just pull the Band-Aid off and go, yeah, maybe I could get a couple more years out of it or patch up a couple spots, but dang it, it's actually going to be less money, which sounds weird, to just do it now.
And that's a hard thing, I think, because it's a ton of money.
It's still 20 grand. It still hurts.
That's expensive.
Exactly.
But then, like, say you put it off 30 years past where you should, then you get to the point where
That's
it's like
that one,
that house,
Yeah.
and then the 20,000. That's nothing.
I wish I
mean,
could.
we couldn't do anything, even if we'd love to be able to help them, but we just don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And so what? It's going to be
over our expertise. Yeah. Now they got to get.
I don't even know how much that would be.
See, and that's actually a perfect example is the roof. Once they get the structure ready for a roof, the roof is still, using my example, $20,000. You know, that's just an easy number. But it's all the other stuff. It's not a couple $100s of wood damage like the one example. It's going to be thousands. I mean, tens of thousands, really.
Easily. And then plus the permits and
engineering
work and whatever else they're going to need.
And lots of time, because now instead of our project where I can tear off a roof and put a new roof back within a day, a couple days, a week, let's say, depending on the size of the house.
Yeah.
This one, their whole top of their house is going to be off. So now think about the logistics of a project like that. It's not just a re-roof where it's noisy for a few days. I don't want to lighten it up. It's doing a roof is frustrating and loud, and especially if you work from home, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, we got a bad review the other day from a neighbor.
A neighbor was complaining about how loud it was.
Yeah,
because we were replacing the roof next door.
Sorry, but I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, that's funny. But anyway, now the whole structure's coming off. Instead of your house looking like a classic, drawing that you see on like a refrigerator, it's flat on top because everything's open. And now when you walk into your living room, your bedroom, wherever, it's the whole roof. It's the whole house. You see sky during that project. I mean, it's a major project now just because they deferred and waited too long.
Yeah. And you do have to wait way too long. Like if you put it off,
that was bad.
If you put it off like a couple of years, it's not going to come to that.
No,
probably.
This podcast isn't trying to be what's called fear mongering or that's real. And you've seen those houses. I mean, there's one down by the beach in Imperial Beach. I don't know if they had a problem with the contractor or the client ran out of money. Who knows? But they tore it down. They built it up in framing and then just stopped. And anyway, all that wood has just been exposed to the elements it's been a couple of years. I think it's Imperial Beach. And the thing is just rotting. It looks like it's falling apart. I don't know how bad it is. But they waited way too long.
Yeah. I mean, you see what eventually happens. You see it driving on the freeway, like in the middle of nowhere. You'll just see a house that's just collapsing on itself.
Yep.
That's what happens eventually if you don't take care of it. I mean, that's like 60, 70 years, I'm sure. But
depending on the part of town.
But
all good questions, man.
Yeah, but of course there are like other smaller stuff that you can do besides getting a new roof. Obviously, we offer maintenance packages. A bunch of other roofers do as well. So you can do that. That's just a great way to, especially like once your roof's getting up there, like say it's 25 years old and you're not sure how long you've got on it. That's a great way to get like minor little like repairs like caulking and stuff done, and then get professional eyes on your roof, and they'll be able to find the problems before they actually turn into real expensive problems.
No, that's exactly it. We do a lot of work for homeowners associations, let's say apartment buildings and big communities, and they have multiple sort of order of operation, if you will. They have their usually on-site maintenance or a company that does their maintenance, and they can do some roofing. They can clear out drains. Let's say if it's a flat roof, clear out gutters, caulk some pipes, do kind of the basic stuff. Then when it gets into more roofing specific repairs, then they call us in. And then of course we're monitoring their roofs in the community or communities the whole time. And then everybody kind of knows, we're about 3 years away. We're about 2 years away. All right, next year we got to change it out. that's where we come in. But we can at least help guide them on, don't do it that way, don't do it this way. We've kind of given little courses to the on-site management team or maintenance team, because they're not. Some are actually, but typically they're not roofing trained. A lot of them have very heavy plumbing and electrical, because that's kind of the most common problems, right? HVAC,
Right.
They're really good at that kind of thing. But then when it comes to roofing or other specialty trades, drain cleaning, that kind of thing, they need a little outside help. That's where we can come in.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, big takeaway from all of this, I think just don't get your roof or don't let your roof get out of hand.
Don't wait too long.
Yeah. Don't wait too long. For us, like you said, we do tons of repair work, and like reputable companies aren't gonna make you do a re-roof when you just need a repair. Like, we're good at repairs. Like, we can repair a lot of things, like most leaks.
Exactly.
As long as the rest of the roof's in good condition, repair is going to be fine. But when it does come time to do a re-roof, then you just kind of need to get yourself ready and
Bite the bullet,
and just
as
do
they
it.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's financing options for it too, because a roof actually does increase the value of the property, and banks know that, so they'll actually lend for projects like that. It's more energy efficient. I mean, that's a long-term play, but there's other benefits
absolutely. To it too. Like, you can just make your AC run kind of better or more efficiently, which is something that when I first started, I was so confused how that works. But
it doesn't have to work as hard, because it actually keeps the attic cooler, which is where the air from the air conditioning is going. You know what I mean? Right. It goes through. So if, let's say, you're trying to cool your house down to 74, let's say, but your attic's 140 degrees, which is not being dramatic.
Yeah.
The air going from your house back to the unit, back down, is going through 140 degree air. You know what I mean? So It's going to heat it up. So it's working much harder. Anyway, with a nice new cool roof, which is almost code now, but we have a few more upgrades we can talk to people about. Keeps the attic cooler, which obviously keeps the home cooler, and doesn't make your AC work nearly as hard. So
absolutely. I mean, among other benefits, warranties, and everything.
Yeah.
And like, you buy a roof now, and you're good for what, like 50 years on some of them?
Yeah, for the warranty wise, yeah. Depending on the type.
Yeah, right.
Some are 20, some are more than comfortable, way past 50. Yeah, it depends on what kind.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
And yeah, great answers. So thank you. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.